And so if we are all subconsciously programmed by patriarchy, by this violent dogma, then that is the foundation from which we will be making our daily decisions and moving within our life. And this is why self-healing is so fucking important, because self-healing helps you to differentiate yourself from your trauma responses. And hello and welcome to Sync and Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Josie Thorne. I am a Red Tent Women's Circle facilitator, a womb healer, and feminine empowerment coach. I have been guiding women to embody their true essence through womb activations and feminine embodiment practices. I started Sync and Flow to help educate and connect women back to the wisdom of their sacred womb space and cyclical nature. I want to help all women reawaken to the true power of the feminine that lives deep within them, so that they may cultivate a relationship to self that is rooted in pure trust, divine love, and a deeply intuitive connection to the body. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Today we're going to be talking about dismantling our inner patriarchy. And what does that mean and what does that look like? So how I see this is the basic fact that we all need to detox from patriarchy. We have all grown up in a patriarchal system, in a patriarchal world, living in this patriarchal matrix. And that means that we have all been brainwashed with social ideologies, dogma, cultural ideologies, and stigmas relating to patriarchy. Basically, all the brainwashing that we have received from society so that patriarchy can stay alive, so that patriarchy can continue its violent enactment of control on society, on the world at large, and on us as individuals, okay? Because the way that systems work is they enact themselves on the individual, through the individual psyche. And then it's through the individual psyche, the individual's belief systems, the individual's free will, that the system continues to live and thrive, okay? And only through the individual, allowing this, can the system stay alive, okay? But for most of us think that we are free sovereign beings and that we have our own free will, and if we don't believe in patriarchy, then well, how could we help perpetuate it? And that's just the sneaky fact. That is the sneaky underlying way that patriarchy actually still has a hold on us, because patriarchy goes so deep into the ways that we were raised as children, the ways that we were parented, the ways that we were schooled and educated in the school system, the ways that we were taught how to relate with one another, the ways that we learn to have sex, the ways that we learn to eat, the ways that we learn to relate to spirituality. All of these foundational aspects of who we are have been tainted through the patriarchal lens, okay? I'm not going to get too theoretical on this episode, but it really goes so much deeper than we can actually think about, because it actually filters into our subconscious, okay? If you've listened to my previous episodes, you will know that the subconscious brain is formed between the ages of 0 and 7 years old, and during that time we become like a sponge. And so any systems or dogma or belief systems that we've been exposed to during that time, we actually absorb that into our psyche and make that a part of who we are, because the survival tactic of the child is to absorb and learn information so that we can fit in. Okay, the human survival tactic is fitting in so that we can belong to the tribe. Okay, and in order to belong to the tribe, we need to adopt the social cultural values and ways of being into our own body, into our own brain, into our own psyche, so that we can amalgamate, so that we can seamlessly fit in, so that we can homogenize ourselves into the society around us. Okay, and this would be an amazing trait if we lived in a healthy society, but unfortunately we live in an extremely unhealthy society that is has the foundational roots of patriarchy, and patriarchy has foundational roots in colonialism, in racism, in sexism, and in just all-around violence, greed, and ignorance. Okay, a massive disassociation from the natural world. The patriarchy mannerisms are to divide and conquer, or to separate the individual from their own power. Okay? The patriarchal system is not an empowering system. It is a system that disempowers the individual, so that the individual is codependent on the patriarchal system, and that's one of the ways in which it keeps itself alive. This creates that codependency in the ways that when we try to exit the patriarchal paradigm, our brain actually cannot handle it, because it feels like it cannot physically or emotionally cope without that system. And so we stay in this codependent, chained relationship to the dogma, to the patriarchal system. The ways that it does this is through the education system and through belief systems. So we form these belief systems as children when our subconscious brain is forming and when our developmental brain is forming. And then after we exit the ages of 0 to 7, what happens is then we start acting from that subconscious brain, because the subconscious brain's job is to take in information and feed it back out in a way that makes sense to the conscious brain, because 95% of our daily actions, our daily decisions, and our daily self-expressions come from our subconscious programming. And so if we are all subconsciously programmed by patriarchy, by this violent dogma, then that is the foundation from which we will be making our daily decisions and moving within our life. And this is why self-healing is so fucking important, because self-healing helps you to differentiate yourself from your trauma responses and ways of being versus who you actually are and how you actually feel on the inside, because so much of the way that we are is because of the type of parenting we received, the type of education we received, and the type of programming we received as children. So a massive part of self-development and self-actualization and becoming who you were always meant to be, a massive part of that is unlearning. Before we can learn new ways of being, new ways of relating, we have to first unlearn and decondition ourselves from what we already know. Because if we continue in the same way, we're just going to continue, and that's how our life is going to unfold. Okay, Newton's first law, sometimes described as the law of inertia, says that an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. The reason I bring up Newton's first law within this context is that we will just continue, our society will just continue reproducing patriarchy and creating patriarchy and allowing patriarchy to exist through our individual ways of being, our individual psyches, until we learn new ways of being and until we have the higher conscious awareness to look within and look at the ways in which we have been in our past and start to deconstruct and pull apart those ways of being and actually be very self-critical in the ways that we have been in the past and look at where's this behavior coming from? Where are these belief systems coming from? Who taught me these belief systems? Why are these belief systems still operating within my mind-body complex? These are super important questions to ask yourself, and most of the time the answers are going to be something along the lines of a trauma response, a childhood trauma, or a societal stigma / belief system that was put on me from the outside world. Okay, patriarchy does not want us to have empowerment. Patriarchy does not want us to be sovereign individuals. Patriarchy does not want us to take our power back into our own hands. And so knowing this, we can see that every single institution in this world that is operating through a patriarchal paradigm will have these belief systems at their foundation, creating a codependent relationship that is rooted in violence, that is rooted in unconsciousness, and that is rooted in a lack of self-awareness and a lack of communal understanding. Okay? And so we are all brainwashed by patriarchy. I am brainwashed by patriarchy. You are brainwashed by patriarchy. My parents are brainwashed by patriarchy. Your parents are brainwashed by patriarchy. Society at large is brainwashed by patriarchy. And unbrainwashing ourselves, deconstructing this brainwashing within our mind and body complex, is going to look different for every single person, because every single person will have absorbed different levels of the patriarchal belief system. You know, some women really deeply struggle with body image. This is a deep brainwashing from the patriarchal system, from the beauty industry, from the fashion industry, that women are not good enough in the skin that they were born in, that they need to fix themselves, that they need to use makeup, that they need to get plastic surgery to make themselves more beautiful. That is a form of brainwashing that women have been subjected to their entire lives. Since a woman is born, they are told you are not good enough. Whether it comes from society, whether it comes from their parents, whether it comes from any other form of media, they are brainwashed with this fact. Your natural state of being is not good enough. Whereas I grew up in quite a free, liberal household that really this belief system wasn't perpetuated, because my mother healed her own relationship to her body and her own body image. And so she didn't pass that on to me. But some girls were not so lucky, and so still are struggling with body image as a foundational concept and feeling like they're not good enough. So other women may need to decondition and heal that on a deeper level than someone like me who didn't receive that messaging so intensely from their childhood. So as you can see, different people absorb different levels of dogma and belief systems and messaging. It also depends on how advanced your parents were in their own healing journey, how spiritually aware, how self-aware they were, how willing they were to question the system. Because really it's all about questioning the system, the external system, and therefore questioning your own belief systems, and therefore questioning your own ways of being. And so obviously within this context, I can only speak from the context of being in a female body, because I'm a woman and I did not have the experience of being a boy or being a man growing up in patriarchy. I only had the experience of being a little girl and a woman growing up in patriarchy. And so I can only speak from the lens of which I am embodied in, and that is a female body. So most of this conversation will be directed towards women. This is really, really important for men. We've all heard the saying, big boys don't cry, men don't cry, okay? That is another patriarchal belief system that has infiltrated the collective psyche, where men are so afraid to show emotion, to cry, and to show that deep emotional side of themselves, because they grew up with the brainwashing that boys don't cry, that crying equals weakness, that weakness equals emotion. These are belief systems that the patriarchy has used to disassociate people from their own bodies, has used to disassociate people from their own inherent intuition, okay? Because these are the belief systems of the patriarchy that have conditioned not only men but women as well to see emotions as being weak, because emotions are a very feminine way of self-expression. And so this is the way that the patriarchy disconnects us from our internal feminine, from our internal feminine energy, and makes us rigid and stiff and hard and blocked off to embracing the beauty of the feminine energy that exists within all of us, the yin to the yang to the yin. We need both feminine and masculine to be balanced whole individuals. Not showing emotion has a detrimental effect. There are studies upon studies upon studies that show that suppressed emotions, especially suppressed anger, can later on in life lead to severe chronic disease, such as cancer, such as autoimmune diseases. These are very, very serious physical ailments, and these can be avoided through the expression of emotions, okay? It's not always going to be the case that these diseases are from suppressed emotion, but we wonder why they have become so common in our current society, when we are actually living in a society that encourages us to suppress our emotions, to get up and get on with it, to disassociate from the body, to numb out, to see our emotions as weak. This is a huge, huge, huge level of brainwashing that has infiltrated the collective psyche, the collective mind. And it works its way on the individual level. Many different people will have this belief system deep down. It's not a conscious belief system, it's a subconscious belief. And that belief system will work in different ways depending on each human individually and their childhood and the way that they grew up and the way that they were mothered and fathered. So all of these belief systems exist within us, but the ways that they enact themselves are varied depending on our personal context. Another massive brainwashing and belief system that the patriarchy has brainwashed into us, especially as women, is the fact that we don't need a period. There are countless benefits, medical benefits, for women to bleed naturally. We need estrogen for all these natural processes in our body, one of them being bone density. And at the same time, we also need progesterone. These are the two main sex hormones that exist during a woman's menstrual cycle. But somehow the patriarchy has convinced us that we don't need them, that they are superfluous, that they are added extras, that the female body can function without them. And this is just a massive lie, because if we didn't need them, we wouldn't have them. Women have been brainwashed to be disconnected from their womb space for centuries. And the only reason that this is the case is because women have not received the education that they need in order to understand their bodies, in order to understand the importance of having a healthy menstrual cycle, having a healthy relationship to your womb, and having a healthy relationship to your period and to your blood in general. Patriarchy has removed the sacredness of having a period, and patriarchy has enacted itself especially through the medical system. The Western medical industrial complex is built on the foundations of patriarchy. Gynecology was built on the foundations of violence and racism. Back in the 18th century and early 19th century, experimental procedures were performed on black women and slaves because they were needed to be tested on human subjects. Many black women and slaves were made infertile and sterilized without their expressed permission, without their consent, because in the name of science, gynecological progress. These are heinous crimes against humanity. These are crimes against the collective female psyche. And somehow we are not taught about the roots of gynecology being so violent and so racist. The entire medical industrial complex is based on the foundations of patriarchy, which means that any doctor or Western medical doctor operating within the mainstream Western medical system will be perpetuating patriarchy in the ways that they treat their patients. There is no understanding of looking at the root cause. There is no understanding of addressing lifestyle, addressing emotions, addressing spiritual issues, because there is a spiritual issue to every single disease and every single ailment that happens in the body. There is no understanding of the emotional spiritual complexes of the mind-body complex within the Western medical system. We only look at the physical health, and only very recently have we looked at the mental health. But then again, the mental health is so poorly managed. Doctors just want to give you pills and prescribe you something and send you on your merry way. They don't want to look at the root cause of depression, anxiety, bipolar, all of these mental health diseases that have only really become apparent or have only really shown themselves to society over the last 100 years or so. Yes, they may have existed previously, but they were a lot less common. Now it is so normal to have anxiety. Now it is so normal for people to be depressed. And that's the thing. It has become common, but it's not normal. It is not at all normal. The ways that gynecologists work and work with women is still from a patriarchal lens. Gynecologists will offer women medical devices such as IUDs and pharmaceutical drugs such as the pill before they even ask a woman, what are your hormones? Before they even test a woman's hormones, before they even look at a woman's gut health, before they even ask a woman about her lifestyle and about her relationship to her womb and to her menstrual cycle. To me, this is absolutely shocking. We are not looking below the surface. The Western medical system only just scratches the surface, and they provide solutions for the surface level symptomatic approach. All diseases, all issues with the body have a root cause. And that root cause is often rooted in a spiritual, emotional, or mental disassociation. Women have been brainwashed for hundreds of years, convinced that they don't need to be connected to their womb space, that the womb is just another organ and that the womb just does its functioning on its own. This is so far from the truth. It actually hurts me and pains me to speak about this. We have been convinced that our period is not necessary. We have been convinced that bleeding is a added extra to being a woman. We have been convinced that by going on the pill or going on hormonal birth control and pretty much having our cycle deleted by suppressing ovulation, this is how these hormonal birth controls work. They suppress ovulation. We have been convinced that suppressing ovulation has no psychological or physiological impact on the body. We have been convinced that these hormonal contraceptives are safe on the physiological and psychological level. And this is just not true. Suppressing ovulation has so many negative side effects. I would need another half an hour to list them all. There are so many brainwashings that we have received as children through our education system, which is rooted in patriarchy. And so deconstructing and detoxing ourselves from patriarchy is going to take a large amount of effort. Like I said, Newton's first law of inertia. If something is continuing on a trajectory, on a path, it will continue on that same trajectory and it will continue on that same path unless it is interrupted by an opposite force. You will continue to perpetuate patriarchy in your own life, in your own belief systems, and in the lives of your future children and their future children, if you do not take your own healing into your own hands and become sovereign and start asking yourself the question, why? Why do I believe this? Why do I hold this belief system? Where does this come from? We need to start deconstructing the very fabric on which our brains and psyches have formed, because we've all been brainwashed by patriarchy, and therefore we've all grown up brainwashed by patriarchy. And we will continue to perpetuate the brainwashing of patriarchy until we become sovereign, individualistic thinkers, critical thinkers. We need to be critical thinkers and consistently and constantly ask ourselves why, where, how. The only way out of patriarchy is through patriarchy. The only way to defeat patriarchy is from the inside out. That is the only way to defeat a system. So we need to understand the system, we need to learn the system, but then we need to separate ourselves from the system so that we can see where the system is leading us astray and help guide ourselves and hopefully the community around us onto a different path, onto a more better path, so that we can all heal and bring back and restore balance and love to this world that so desperately needs it. Another aspect of patriarchal brainwashing is the fact that we are separate from nature. We as humans are separate from nature. Nature is outside of us. And this is why we are going through the current climate crisis that we are facing right now. We have become so separated from nature, so disconnected, so disassociated from nature that we do not realize that every time we harm nature, every time we litter, every time we release toxins into the atmosphere, we are harming ourselves because we don't see, the patriarchal system doesn't see nature as connected to the individual self, to the individual emotional, spiritual, psychological, and physical self. The patriarchy doesn't see these interconnected ways of being. The patriarchy doesn't see the ways that we are so deeply connected to the cycles, to the natural world, to the seasons. And that's how the patriarchal system can justify violence against the natural world. That is how the patriarchal system can justify climate change. That is how the patriarchal system can justify companies releasing large amounts of pollution and toxicity and garbage into this world. And it is up to us to take back our power. It is up to us to take back our power. It is up to us to say no more. I will not allow this to continue. It is up to us to gain and develop the self-awareness necessary in order to create a new future timeline, in order to create a new societal paradigm, in order to create new ways of being and new ways of living and new ways of seeing. Ones that are rooted in love and compassion and interconnectedness, not the ones that are rooted in violence, separation, and greed. Patriarchy has to die, but the only way it can die is by you taking self-responsibility for your own healing and your own growth and your own spiritual self-development first and foremost. And once you make a change in your day-to-day life and your habitual daily routines, then you can start to make an impact within your family, within your home, within your community. And any impact and healing that you have on yourself will have a ripple effect. We must never forget about the interconnectedness of humans and how anything that we do for ourselves, we do for the rest of the world. The ripple effect is so real. Any healing that you do for yourself, you do for your entire family, your entire community. And that is powerful. That is how we take our power back. Reclaim your sovereignty, reclaim your power, reclaim your inner hero. No more victim mentality. Patriarchy wants us to stay victims, but we will not let it. Yes, we are all brainwashed by the patriarchy, but how do we unbrainwash ourselves? How do we decondition ourselves? And the best way to answer that, besides telling you to question everything, is to simply follow the natural way. Patriarchy will convince us that the natural way is not working, that the natural way is broken or needs fixing. But the more you embrace your natural self, the more you embrace your natural body with its natural fluids and smells and odors and excretions, the more you embrace all that it means to be a human, the dirty, the ugly, the messy, the emotional, the crazy, the more you will detox and decondition yourself out of patriarchy. Because patriarchy convinces us that all of that needs fixing and needs priming and wrapping it up into a pretty little box, because the feminine can only be what the patriarchy deems it to be, okay? No, 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 no. We call bullshit on that stuff now. We are taking back our natural beauty, our natural power, and our natural body. We are perfect as we are. God doesn't make mistakes. You were born perfect and you will die perfect. Embrace the perfectness of all your imperfections. Embrace the perfectness of all that you may deem unworthy, unlovable, shameful. Anything that you feel shame around, know that that is patriarchal brainwashing on you, because shame is not a natural, organic human emotion. Shame has to be learned. Shame has to be taught. Shame has to be absorbed by an external circumstance. Shame can only be put onto you. Shame is not a natural, organic human emotion. Fear, yes, that's a natural, organic human emotion, but not shame. Anything that the patriarchy deems as taboo, like sex, like blood, like power, like periods, anything that the patriarchy deems taboo, you know that there is power there, okay? You know that there is power there, because the reason that the patriarchy deems it taboo in the first place is because they want women to be disconnected from their power. And they know that if a woman is empowered in her sex, is empowered in her connection to her period, and is empowered in her natural beauty, then she doesn't need to have this codependent, violent relationship with the patriarchal system. The patriarchy knows that if a woman is empowered in these aspects of herself, this woman will be set free, and this woman will start to change the world and impact those around her. Next time you notice yourself feeling shame, look at what's underneath the shame. Go to those dark, ugly places and confront yourself. Confront your psyche. Confront your emotions around whatever you feel shameful about. Next time you feel taboo around a certain subject, or you feel like you can't speak about a certain subject, ask yourself, why do I feel shameful? Why do I hold my tongue? Why do I think that I can't speak about this so-called taboo topic? Who told me it was taboo? Who made me believe that? Most of the time, most people are dying to speak about taboo topics, but they don't know how to bring it up. So the more you bring it up, the more you speak about mental health, menstrual health, bodily disconnections, eating disorders, sex, like all these different things, the more you speak about it and the more you make it common to speak about it, the more you remove shame from these subjects so that the patriarchy doesn't control them anymore. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode and engage with all the wisdom that was shared. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, as this really helps this wisdom reach new people. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to me via Instagram DM or send me an email. You can follow me on my personal account on Instagram at Josie, Josie _Thorne, THORNE, or you can follow Sync and Flow, my business accounts, at Sync, that's spelled SYNC _in_flow. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or queries you may have. Otherwise, get in contact to book a free discovery call to start your self-healing spiritual journey today. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now, loves.